Hello!
Ah, who doesn't love weird and disturbing toys? Answer, old people, but we don't care about those. Now, having lived through the 80s, I can confirm there were a lot of very strange toys on offer during that decade. I mean, arguably they pretty much are at any time, you just have to look hard enough for them, but that's not the point. We're only talking 80s, they're the only ones I've got handy to the sofa at the moment. And the first thing we're going to look at are a couple of Power Lords. Power Lords is an interesting line of, well, action figures, I suppose, really, from the company Revell, who usually make plastic models. I don't know if you've ever heard of a book called Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials. If your local library should have a copy, and indeed you still have a local library, have a look. It's very interesting. It's basically a man called Wayne Barlow who went through various science fiction stories and drew what he thought the aliens would look like. The company Revell approached him and said, "Design us some weird aliens that we can make into action figures." "Okay," he said, and it turned into a thing. I think there was a comic spin-off and all sorts of stuff. But we're going to have a look at the leader of the Power Lords, the mighty hero, Adam Power. Notice that he just looks like somebody's dad or a supply teacher or something else not particularly heroic, other than the sort of strange all-in-one suit he's got going on. Yeah, that's Adam Power for you. But don't worry, he transforms. Would you like to see what he transforms into? Ping! Yes, he gets very ill. His skin goes blue, he gets a mortifying case of varicose veins, gets one of those soul stones from Diablo stuck in his forehead, which somehow gives him a free back-combed afro, and he's got a sort of Lord Voldemort thing going on with the nose. You'll be pleased to hear the face recognition on the camcorder is still picking him up, though. The most frightening thing, of course, is that you may have noticed that his transformation sequence just involves him spinning round, so he's kind of got a really quite unpleasant thing going on here where he's got other faces growing out the back of his head. My God, it is Voldemort, isn't it? Hang on. There we are, that's Professor Quirrell from the first book with Voldemort on the back of his head and all that. Actually, you say Voldemort, look how prominent his nose and chin are and how flat they are there. I think he just ran into a wall really fast and probably turned him blue. Anyway, I don't really understand why this was thought to be a good idea for the hero of a piece. He just looks like a really ill corpse. But fair enough. It's strange, you know, I can't seem to get rid of these figures. I always have one in the house, despite the fact I've never knowingly bought one. I had one when I was young, and I have a particularly negative memory associated with it, so I got rid of it. And whenever I buy a box of sort of cheap figures or things now, there's always one of these in. I've given away 2 or 3. I've just given up in the end and just keep one in the house as a sort of evil talisman. I can't think of another use for it, to be honest. Do you want to see his missus? Oh God, you're going to love this. Let me introduce you to the Queen of Power, Shayla, or Chayla, depending which box you read. She did come with various accessories. This one, like, I think she had some sort of She-Ra type hat and a cloak, and inexplicably removable bra and panties. I don't really know how that works for a boy's toy line, but there you go. Now, she's a bit odd looking. You may notice she's got a third eye in the middle of her head, quite a lot of paint rubs, probably not something that was designed into it, and she's wearing a sort of weird unitard thing that covers her all up, or at least you think it does, until you look at the feet there, and you can actually see separate toenails and toes and that, so that kind of implies this isn't a bodysuit, it's just she's got really loose blue skin. Can you think of a way this could get even more unpleasant? Well, let me show you her transformation. Again, we've got a sort of head growing out of the back, but now for the whole body we present the Queen of Power. Yes, basically it's a skinned corpse with weird patches of blue mould growing on it, and I don't know what's going on with the face. I mean, it just looks like somebody mutilated it with a hatchet and then it went rotten. The only thing that implies she's perhaps now, you know, an alien as opposed to a rotting corpse is you've got these sort of 2-toed feet going on, but other than that, I remember finding this in a box of figures and picking it up and just sort of going, "Bleh!" when I looked around on it. I can think of no other reaction to it, to be honest. Oh well, at least we know nothing's going to get more unpleasant than that, except the very next thing I'm going to show you. Okay, this literally involves the use of rubber gloves. Oh dearie me. Okay, this is an infamous toy. I'm still not entirely sure how I managed to get hold of one, especially not still in its packet. But this is something from the 80s that was banned, and for a very good reason. If I can ever get this glove on, I will show you. I've got one of those gloves for people with 4 fingers. I don't know. I think we're all right. Ah, cheap rubber gloves, there's nothing like it. Okay, ready? Have a look at dog breath from Breath Blasters. Let's see if you can work out what these things do. Squeeze me if you dare for a blast of bad air. Lovely. I'll do your bad mouthing for you. Watch out, I reek. Less subtlety and pun in the last one there, really. It's just blatantly telling you that it effing stinks. Scented with safe materials, non-toxic. Oh, that's all right then. Dog breath. His breath will hound you. Yes, breath blasters. The idea is you squeeze them and they spew out something that really stinks. Lovely. I'd also like to point out that over the years the package has gone completely rotten and unfortunately has been unsealed, so it may not be as potent as it used to be. Anyway, it apparently makes sense to collect all 6. Each smells grosser than the rest. Pardon? Each smells grosser than the rest? No, that's not physically possible. Think about it. One of them's got to smell the most gross and one of them's got to smell the least gross. They couldn't physically exist. Anyway, other things in this range include George Garbage Mouth, who apparently smells of rotten garbage, Mackerel Mouth, who smells of dodgy fish, Death Breath, who smells of rotting corpses. Is a child really going to know what that smells like? Ms. Morning Mouth. Again, I would hope a child would know what that smells like. Dog Breath. His breath will hound you. Yes, this one that's... It seems like the mildest amount of the lot, to be honest. And Victor Vomit, yeah, because we all want something that stinks of vomit belching in our faces. Now, there were lots of stories about these when I was young. They were naughty and you weren't allowed to have them, and I think they're relatively expensive, so I never saw one at the time. Or was it one of those things that was just talked about and never released over here? That must have been released over here. How else would I have got one? Yeah, the joke behind them was... They smelt so bad it was a real problem, as in it could sort of make people sick if you sneaked up and squeezed one at them. And now, unfortunately, I've now got to try and explain smells through the medium of video. This is not going to be easy. Right, let's take a whiff of one corner, something I have pretty much avoided doing. God, it absolutely, yeah. Just the corner of the packet really stinks, actually, quite badly. I don't know if this has sort of gone off a bit over the years, but it still seems to have its potency. I'm slightly worried of taking it out. Also, notice, it's all covered in, like, white dust. Is that something that's accumulated? I don't know. Why is this rotted? Is it the way it was stored, or is it well, more to do with the thing itself? Oh, God. Right, here we go. 25 years after being locked up, let's have a look at dog breath. It's just a lump of rubber. Can't actually smell anything from here. Up close I can. Oh, God. That is absolutely horrible. It smells of sort of rotting rubber, which I imagine is something that has happened over the last 25 years. And yeah, there is kind of a hint of unpleasant dog odour or something. I'm now going to take the opportunity to tell you why these were actually banned. Answer is, you know where it says non-toxic on them? Not true. They are toxic. Some of the chemicals involved are literally poisonous to humans. Not massively so, or I wouldn't have one around, but I'm wearing rubber gloves just in case. Okay, I've put it off long enough. I'm going to squeeze it and see what it smells like. Ready? Oh, it doesn't really smell of anything. It's gone off over the years. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have paid £8,000 for this. There's a sort of just a rough hint of a really, really horrible, rotting, rubbery dog smell on it, and I presume that's what it smelt like at the time. I'm quite disappointed by that. I thought there would be something left to it. Well, there is a modern equivalent. This is not from the 80s, I repeat, this is not from the 80s. These things are called stink blasters, this one apparently smelling like a garbage truck. I can't somehow imagine that these will be anywhere near as bad, but let's find out. It's a little man with no nose. I wonder if there's a reason it's got no nose. Oh, and there's like a hole in the mouth for it to make smells through. That actually just smells like a slightly dodgy perfume. Nope, clearly over the years they have done away with the toxic chemicals and the properly bad smells as a result. Yeah, that's just sort of faintly unpleasant, whereas the whiff you get off the top of that was deeply nasty, and I'm in some ways quite glad that it didn't actually unload its full stench into my gob. Ping. Oh well, time for a look at some Ghostbusters things. They inexplicably, well, I say inexplicably, I suppose they ran out of different versions of Peter Venkman to make, and so decided to make some weird neighbourhood figures that just look like people in the neighbourhood that turn into nasty things. See, this looks like your typical motorcycle policeman from a film, a bit T-1000 in fact, but don't worry, because you can stretch ex-cop's limbs in an unpleasant sense, press a button and... yes, he's been dead a very long time and is still shrieking in agony. Have a look at the detail on that tongue. Absolutely fantastic. I could imagine this being one of the toys Grandma probably wouldn't have bought for you. Especially not if she looked like this. This is Granny Gross. She's a granny. Wait for the gross bit. Just looks like a little old lady with sort of slightly odd proportions, but twiddle her hat round. She's got a third eyeball and her eyes pop out of her head. But far more interestingly, pull her head up. And yeah. There's something really unpleasant about that I've never been able to put my finger on. Perhaps it's the giant tongue and the fact that her giant tongue and jaw seems to take up her entire body. And yeah, let's not think too much about that, actually. Oh, dearie me. I should take these gloves off, actually, and probably burn them. Well, you may think that toys like that wouldn't sell very well. You would probably be wrong, because the Beetlejuice line of toys, based on the Michael Keaton film, also had their own versions. I only have one, and part of it is missing, but you'll still get the idea. Beetlejuice's neighbourhood is apparently full of old men with really weird looks on their faces, whose neck breaks because the springs in it have gone. Hang on, let's get that back there. And walk around with their hands in their pockets. And, yeah, this is pretty much creepy enough already. But don't worry, because with a bit of fiddling, it turns out he's got a buzzard growing out of his arse. Either that or that head is growing out of his arse. I don't really know. Again, can't really see where they were coming from with this one. It's just sort of a bit weird. But the vulture thing I can live with. It's more the sort of really creepy old man with his hands bunched in his pockets, which is worrying me, to be honest. Anyway, here's Beetlejuice himself. Hello, Beetlejuice. Look, you've got a life jacket thing on. You've been out at sea, haven't you? What's happened to you? Oh, you've got monstrous parasites in your skull. That's nice for you. Also, this appears to be the only thing the figure actually does. Oh, hang on, you weren't supposed to move the arms up. You push the legs together. Yes, you push the legs together and tentacles come out of his head. I probably, would have stuck with He-Man over this, personally. Can't actually... This is freaking me out. Let's have a look at something slightly different, shall we? How about a small Beetlejuice with his head on a crab? Or is that stag beetle? I don't know. It's not the colour of anything real. Oh, man. I'm feeling slightly nauseous now. I'm wondering if dog breath there is actually having some sort of small effect. Anyway, let's have a look at another jolly Beetlejuice. Now, this one's a bit nicer. This is something actually from the film where he shouts it's showtime and lots of weird stuff happens. Face is a bit... yeah, fair enough. It's all exciting for the kids. And also, his neck ratchets up like a weird snake's neck. That's all very interesting. But what is odd is if you take his head off, you've got this absolutely grotesque... I don't really know how to describe it. Is it supposed to be a lizard's head? A snake? Well, snake's head, presumably, to go with the neck. And it's got kind of huge bug eyes and is like vomiting blood, or is that supposed to be the tongue? I don't know, it looks like it's in a lot of pain, to be perfectly honest with you. And also the snake head thing doesn't work because of that big rubber collar. Ruined everything. Ah, dear. You didn't get stuff like this with He-Man. Except, of course, Mantenna, which was some sort of bug-eyed thing whose eyes came out of its head. I actually had one of these. I remember my aunt being most displeased with it. Also, something that worries me now that I didn't realise at the time is that his face appears to contain a blackened anus, which isn't something that I really want to associate with any Masters of the Universe. I've just spotted something out of the corner of my eye I didn't realise I had. Hang on. Just get out of the box here. It's Fakor! Not actually particularly weird or disturbing, but, well, from a business sense, they basically got a He-Man figure, moulded it in blue, and claimed it was an evil robot that impersonates He-Man. The problem being, of course, you would probably notice if He-Man was bright blue or not. Can't imagine that fooling anyone. I remember in the little comic books that came with it, it turned the normal colour of He-Man and something happened and then it went blue and everyone went, oh, you're an evil robot. And he was like, yeah, fair enough. And they all had tea. But, you know, the figure doesn't do that. It's just a blue He-Man. Can you imagine if that... I can't imagine that having sold many. How would you convince your dad you want another He-Man, but in bright blue? It's just not going to work, is it? Oh well, I'll leave you anyway with one of my favourite little things. The A-Team was very popular, they made figures of the A-Team, and they decided to invent some villains for the A-Team to fight. And for some reason, they were all really badly moulded and just looked like weird tramps. I mean, this one's got a hat that's obviously too small for its head. What is going on? And actually, this is probably the worst bit. Get them to sit down in the vehicles or whatever, and they only sit like that. Spare some change, mister. Never really saw where they were coming from there. Also, can't remember the names of them. I think they were all named after snakes, as enemies of the A-Team should be. Anyway, that's quite enough of this, because I don't have anything more disturbing to show you, especially not this weird Batman figure from 1989, where it always looked to me like the Joker's head was a desiccated corpse. You getting that feeling? Or is it just me who has the shrieking nightmares? Well, probably all of us now. I'd just like to report that the breath blaster seems to have had some kind of reaction with the atmosphere or something, and whilst it now still doesn't sort of belch any smell, it's making the whole room fucking stink really badly, and I'm going to have to wrap it in like a load of plastic bags or something, and I think I just touched it, now I'm going to die!